All right, today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to follow the life story, a biography, if you will, of this tiny but super important molecule in our bodies called bilirubin. Its story is the key to understanding something you've probably heard of, jaundice. So let's get into it. So let's kick things off with a question that, a lot of new parents find themselves asking. Why do some newborns get, well, a little yellow? It can be pretty worrying if you don't know what's going on. And the answer, the whole reason, comes down to our main character today, bilirubin.
Right, so that yellowish tint to the skin and eyes, it's got a name. It's called jaundice, or if you want to sound extra smart, icterus. But here's the really important thing to get right away. Jaundice isn't a disease itself, nope. It's more like a signpost, a visual heads up from your body that there's just too much of this stuff, bilirubin, hanging around in the blood.
So, you might be wondering, how much is too much? Well, that yellowing usually starts to show up when bilirubin levels creep up past about 2.5, maybe 3 milligrams per deciliter. But just knowing the number isn't the full story, right? To really get why this even happens, we've got to go back, way back, to where bilirubin is born. Okay, so where on earth does this stuff come from? You might be surprised. It's actually a waste product, but it comes from one of the coolest, most efficient recycling programs in the known universe, your body's system for breaking down old red blood cells. I mean, think about it. Your red blood cells are absolute workhorses, zipping around delivering oxygen 24/7. But they're not immortal. They've got a shelf life of about 120 days. And once they're old and worn out, the body sends them off to these special recycling centers, mostly in the spleen, to be taken apart. And this is where bilirubin's story really kicks off.
Okay, this part is just so cool. Check out this little chemical journey. So you've got your old red blood cell. Inside is hemoglobin, and part of that is this red molecule called heme. Step 1, an enzyme cracks open the heme, and boom, it turns into a green compound called biliverdin. But it doesn't stop there. Almost instantly, another enzyme jumps in and changes that green biliverdin into this yellowy-orange molecule. And that, my friends, is our star, unconjugated bilirubin. How cool is that? Red to green to yellow, all in a flash.
So, we've made this new molecule. Great, except not so great. There's a big problem. This brand new bilirubin is actually kind of a menace for two major reasons. First, it's fat-soluble. That's a fancy way of saying it hates water, and since our blood is mostly water, that's an issue. Second, and this is the big one, it's toxic, and it's especially dangerous to our brain cells. So in the process of recycling, the body has basically just created a tiny poison it now has to deal with.
Yeah, exactly. It's like trying to mix oil and water. It just doesn't work. This toxic little guy can't just be floating loose in the bloodstream. That would be a disaster. So what does the body do? It does something genius. It calls for a ride. It calls a taxi.
And that taxi service is provided by a protein called albumin. So the toxic bilirubin basically flags it down, latches on super tight, and albumin acts as its personal chauffeur, driving it safely through the bloodstream. And where is it headed? To the one place in the body equipped to handle this kind of toxic waste, the liver. Okay, so our taxi is pulled up to the destination, the liver. You can think of the liver as this incredible high-tech processing plant. Its job now is to take our little troublemaker, bilirubin, and give it a complete makeover, to turn it from something dangerous into something totally harmless. So how does this makeover happen? It's a really neat two-step process. First, the liver cell, a hepatocyte is the official term, reaches out and grabs the bilirubin, pulling it off its albumin taxi. Then comes the real magic trick. It's a step called conjugation. A special enzyme comes along and sticks a little tag on it. This tag is like a chemical life jacket that suddenly makes the bilirubin water-soluble. It completely changes the game.
And just look at this before and after. It's a total transformation. Before the liver did its thing, we had unconjugated bilirubin, the bad guy. It was fat-soluble, toxic, and needed that taxi. But after the makeover, we get conjugated bilirubin, the good guy. Now it's water-soluble, totally non-toxic, and can float around on its own, no problem. The liver has completely neutralized the threat. Problem solved.
All right, so our bilirubin has been detoxified. It's safe, it's ready to be kicked out of the body. This brings us to the final chapter of its life story, the grand exit. So the liver dumps this new, safe bilirubin into our bile, which flows down into the intestines. Once it's there, the bacteria in our gut have a party with it. They convert most of it into a pigment called stercobilin.
And here's a little piece of trivia for you. That pigment, stercobilin, is the exact reason why stool is brown. Pretty wild, right?
Now, most of it goes out that way, but a small amount takes a little side trip. It gets reabsorbed back into the blood and makes its way to the kidneys. The kidneys then filter it out and excrete it as urobilin. And guess what? Just like its cousin, urobilin is also a pigment. It's the one that gives urine its signature yellow color. So bilirubin is responsible for both.
Okay, and that should be the end of the story. Bilirubin is made, detoxified, and excreted. The end. But not always. Especially in newborns, there's this really fascinating plot twist that brings us right back to where we started. It's something called breast milk jaundice.
So, to get this plot twist, you have to know about a process called enterohepatic circulation. It sounds complicated, but the idea is simple. It's basically a U-turn. A substance that's supposed to be on its way out of the body through the intestine suddenly gets reabsorbed, goes back into the blood, and takes another trip back to the liver. It's a recycling loop.
And here's where it gets crazy in a breastfed newborn. So the baby's liver does its job, makes the safe bilirubin, and sends it to the intestine. But it turns out there's an enzyme in breast milk that acts like a saboteur. It finds the safe bilirubin and actually undoes the liver's hard work. It literally snips off that water-soluble tag, turning it right back into the toxic, fat-soluble version. And because it's fat-soluble again, it gets reabsorbed right back into the baby's bloodstream. So you see what's happening. This U-turn, this recycling loop, is sending a whole new batch of toxic bilirubin back to a liver that's already a little immature and not working at full speed yet. The poor little liver just gets overwhelmed. It can't keep up with the extra workload. And the result? Bilirubin levels start to climb. And that's why the baby's jaundice might stick around for a little longer.
So, after all that, what are the big takeaways here? Let's boil it down. 1. Jaundice is a sign, not a disease. 2. It's the unconjugated toxic bilirubin we worry about. And 3, and this is the most important one, even though this whole breast milk loop sounds pretty dramatic, breast milk jaundice is almost always harmless. It is absolutely 100% not a reason to stop breastfeeding. That's key.
And that's a wrap on the biography of bilirubin. It's this amazing story of recycling, detoxification, and transport that's going on inside of you right now without you even thinking about it. Which kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other incredible secret journeys and amazing recycling programs is your body pulling off completely behind the scenes at this very moment?